Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing the body language and behavior during the second GOP debate. Before we get started, I do want to remind you that this is not meant to be political. It's about politicians, but I really don't care who you vote for. On top of that, I wanted to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. We're going to be watching some clips of everybody, but we're going to start with Ron DeSantis. Now, look at the way that they're standing right here. You can see Christie looks casual. Vivek Ramaswamy, he's holding the podium. Ron DeSantis is standing with his hands at his side, and that looks awkward. Ron DeSantis sometimes has awkward body language. Let's keep going.
Been spoken, please.
The people in Washington are shutting down the American dream with their reckless behavior. They borrowed.
So he's going to be saying things that have an aggressive tone to them. He's also going to be showing you various facial expressions that appear aggressive, and yet the way he's saying it, his voice is going higher rather than lower and forceful. It's higher and sort of stilted. Listen to this as we keep going.
They printed, they spent, and now you're paying more for everything. They are the reason for that. They have shut down our national sovereignty by allowing our border to be wide open.
So as you can see right now, look at his brow. Like, that's an angry look. He's saying things that he feels that you should be angry about, but he's saying it in a bit of a high register, and he keeps putting his hands at his side. He seems non-committed to how angry he wants to come across in all of this.
So please spare me the crocodile tears for these people. They need to change what's going on. And where's Joe Biden? He's completely missing in action from leadership. That set the stage for the inflation that we have now. I can tell you this, as governor of Florida, we cut taxes, we ran surpluses, we've paid down over 25.
Now you're going to see more natural body language as he's talking about Florida.
To you to defend his record where they added $7.8 trillion to the debt.
So now he's getting through all the points that he wants to make sure that you hear.
That set the stage for the inflation that we have now. I can tell you this, as governor of Florida.
And now you're seeing his eyebrows go up as he's talking about being governor of Florida. Because as I've said on other videos, we try to draw attention to our faces when we raise our eyebrows. So at this point, this is what he really wants you to hear.
We cut taxes, we ran surpluses, we've paid down over 25% of our state debt, and I vetoed wasteful spending when it came to my desk. And as your president.
Now we're going to see Vivek Ramaswamy talk for a minute.
You're standing next to Senator Scott. Do you agree with what he said, or do you?
So the first thing you probably notice is that his hair is very tall. And I don't say that to be funny. Really, we do things like hairstyles and all of that to give a specific impression to people. And I don't know if it's to give him more height. I don't know if it's to make him seem larger, but he really is quite exaggerated with his hair. But you also have to keep in mind that when people do things like that, it also tells us a little bit about their personality. He's a little bit more out there, a little bit more wild than other people. He'll say exactly what he thinks. And so it's not surprising that somebody like that would also have a hairstyle that's a little bit less traditional, a little bit stands out a little bit compared to the other folks.
You think he's wrong?
I agree with some of what he said, for sure. I like the spirit of it. I'll say that I don't have a lot of patience for the union bosses. I think that's where he and I actually have a common view. I do have a lot of sympathy for the workers, however.
Now, one thing you'll notice with the way that Vivek Ramaswamy talks, if you compare that to Ron DeSantis, it's a lot more natural. It does seem a lot more like he's saying exactly what he thinks and feels. So he does come across as more authentic. I'm not talking about the content of what he's saying, whether you like him or not. That's immaterial to me. I'm just saying in terms of the way that he's saying it, that he does seem more natural. Let's go back and watch that for just a second.
He and I actually have a common view. I do have a lot of sympathy for the workers, however. People are going through real hardship in this country. I've been through hardship growing up. My father stared down layoffs at GE under Jack Welch's tenure at the GE plant in Evendale, Ohio. My mom had to work overtime.
Now watch what he's doing with his face right here. Even though he's trying to relate to the common man, he's kind of doing the opposite right here. Watch this.
Tenure at the GE plant in Evendale, Ohio.
So at the GE plant in Evendale, Ohio, for whatever reason, as he's saying this, he's pointing his nose upward, which I wouldn't do, actually. I would very much try to look straight ahead because this can make people feel like you think you're superior to them.
But victimhood is a choice, and we choose to be victorious in the United States of America.
So listen to the way that he says things when he is angry relative to somebody like Ron DeSantis. See, he's got his finger pointed. I talked about that last time. We oftentimes do that when we're feeling angry or hostile. He's saying things in a tone that's much sharper, much louder. You're going to remember that this is stuff that Vivek Ramaswamy does not like. I can't remember, even though it was just 2 minutes ago that I watched it, what it is that Ron DeSantis said he didn't like. So you got to keep in mind how much more those messages stick with you when people say things in a certain way.
Hood is a choice, and we choose to be victorious in the United States of America. You know what? If I was giving advice to those workers, I would say go picket in front of the White House in Washington, D.C. That's really where the protest needs to be. Disastrous economic policies that have driven up prices, that have driven up interest rates and mortgage rates, at the same time wages remaining stagnant.
And see, this is very effective. Watch his hand right here as he's talking about this.
That have driven up interest rates and mortgage rates.
Using that visual, driven up interest rates. Once again, that's going to connect with people on a more emotional level rather than just somebody standing there saying it's driven up interest rates and blah, blah, blah. He's saying it with passion. He's using his body language to illustrate that, and people are going to feel more when they hear that.
At the same time, wages remaining stagnant, and rescind a majority of those unconstitutional federal regulations that are hampering our economy.
So this also see the way that he talks with his fist. This is obviously a sign of aggression, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you are feeling passionate about something or something makes you angry, you want people to know that. And I think that's part of the reason that people connect with Vivek Ramaswamy, and they say he's somebody who feels and is very genuine, and he really is somebody who believes what he's saying. So now we're going to see Pence talking about Obamacare.
Right now, it is more popular than ever. Why should Americans trust you if you become president to fix that, or is Obamacare here to stay?
Well, first, let me speak to the mass shootings issue, and then I'll answer that question. It's an important one, Dana. Look, I'm someone that believes that justice delayed is justice denied. And as a father of three, as the grandfather of three beautiful little girls,
So watching Mike Pence talk, he's much more deliberate. He's slower. He's more methodical. He gives the impression of stability. Not that Vivek Ramaswamy isn't stable, but he's more energetic. So it's really, they're trying to appeal to a specific type of voter. Each one knows who they're going after. And so when you see Mike Pence like this, his goal and the way that he speaks is to give off an impression of stability.
Is actually going to spend the rest of his life behind bars in Florida. That's not justice. We have to mete out.
Now, look at what Ron DeSantis is doing with his mouth right here. I'm going to go back so you can see this again.
Life behind bars in Florida. That's not justice. We have.
See, he's pursing his lips together. Looks like maybe he's chewing on the inside of his lip. He's showing more anxiety on his face than other people do. Once again, I think he also has his hands by his side, which gives it a bit of an awkward stance.
Have to mete out justice and send a message to these would-be killers that you are not going to live out your days behind bars. You're going to meet justice in this system.
But does that mean Obamacare is here to stay?
Well, thank you for reiterating the question, because I'd love to answer it. Look, I think it's one of the choices here. You know, my former running mate, Donald.
Now you'll notice he's just talking with one hand right now, which I think means that this is something he's less confident in, is what he was just talking about. Obviously, he wanted to talk about the mass shooting issue. He was talking with his arms open. He had a lot of big body language. Now she's asking about Obamacare. He's got one hand, it looks like probably in his pocket, or at least one hand holding onto the podium, but he's only talking with one hand, which is less committed, is less energetic. It shows a little bit less confidence in what he's saying in terms of how people will receive it.
Donald Trump actually has a plan to start to consolidate more power in Washington, D.C., consolidate more power.
There's exactly one person in the Republican Party which talks a big game about reaching young people, and that's me. And let me level with all of you. I'm the new guy here, and so I know I have to earn your trust. What do you see? You see a young man who's in a bit of a hurry, maybe a little ambitious, bit of a know-it-all, it seems at times. I'm here to tell you, no, I don't know it all. I will listen. I will have the best people, the best and brightest in this country, whatever age they are.
Now, this is interesting. I talk about how eyebrows bring emphasis. You know, right here he's saying whatever age they are. Watch this.
Have the best people, the best and brightest in this country, whatever age.
So he really does want people to hear they're missing out on a younger demographic. So if you were to take this debate and just watch when people raise their eyebrows and that was all you heard, you would still basically hear the same themes. You would still basically hear the same stuff, because right now he's really wanting people to understand you're missing out on a demographic, and I'm reaching that.
They are advising me. We will be probably many of the people on this stage included. That's how I built my company.
Infuriating, because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps that we could have. And what you've got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel.
Now, she genuinely looks angry right now. Now, Nikki Haley sometimes can come across as somewhat inauthentic. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But this is something, look at this facial expression right here. She's clenching her teeth. Her eyes are wide open. She's talking very strongly with her hands. This genuinely makes Nikki Haley quite angry. I'm going to go back, and then let's keep going.
Social media apps that we could have. And what you've got, I honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say. Because I can't believe that here you've got a TikTok situation. What they're doing is these 100.
So you see him pursing his lips. He is feeling frustrated by what she's saying. Some people can just let stuff roll off their back and they don't really care. Ramaswamy is not a fan of this.
What they're doing is these 150 million people are on TikTok. That means they can get your contacts, they can get your financial information, they can.
Watch Vivek Ramaswamy's eyes blinking. I think that the points that she's making are stressing him out a little bit. Watch this right here.
People are on TikTok. That means they can get your contacts, they can get your financial information, they can get your emails, they can get text messages, they can.
It seems like she's actually getting to him more this debate than she did last time. That for whatever reason, it seems to bother him more because that blink rate was pretty high, and we typically associate blinking like that with stress. Now we're going to watch some of Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis.
The first thing I'll say is what I saw at the United Nations is energy security is national security. We need a president that understands we have to partner with our producers and make sure that we have their backs. What you don't.
Now, she's somebody, as I've pointed out before, she uses her hands to talk in a very precise way. She's one that is a little bit less connected with the emotion and more performative. You'll notice she has certain hand movements that she knows she wants to do. And so right now she's doing them all very quickly in a row. It doesn't feel very natural. Watch this.
We have to partner with our producers and make sure that we have their backs. What you don't need is a president who is against energy and.
It's good to use your hands to emphasize when you're talking. It helps you be more convincing. But there's something about the way that she does it, the way that she times it, that feels a little bit strange at times.
Independence. Ron DeSantis is against fracking. He's against drilling. He's been against. You did it. He always talks about what happens on day one. You better watch out because what happens on day two is when you're in trouble. Day two in Florida, you banned fracking. You banned offshore drilling. You did it on federal lands, and you took green subsidies that you didn't.
All right, now he's laughing, he's smiling, he's trying to say that what she's saying doesn't matter, but you can tell that it's starting to get to him by watching his tongue. When we start getting excited or stressed sometimes, our mouth starts to dry out. Watch this right here.
And offshore drilling. You did it on federal lands, and you took green.
All right, see, licking his lips right there. Her talking about this is genuinely making him feel pressured. He wants to cover it with a smile, but I think that this is causing him a lot of stress right now.
Subsidies that you didn't have to take.
Governor DeSantis, you were mentioned. You have the right to respond. 30 seconds.
Yeah. I just did a plan out in West Texas for American energy dominance. We're going to choose Midland over Moscow. We're going to choose the Marcellus over the Mullahs, and we're going to choose Bakken over Beijing, and we are going to lower your gas prices. We are going to get that job done because it's important for our national security, it's important for jobs, and that's one of the best ways to drive down inflation.
So he feels very confident in this response. There's times where we've seen him slip up a little bit, where he seems uncomfortable. This is a point where he actually seemed very comfortable. His body language was very consistent. He emphasized all of the right points, and he looked fairly natural saying it, although it did seem somewhat prepared because I think this is something he wanted people to hear. He didn't trip up at all based on how Nikki Haley was talking to him. Now we're going to watch a minute of Doug Burgum talking.
Okay. If they have a level playing field, they can outcompete anyone in the world, but this is part of the larger issue that we're talking about.
So as he's saying, part of the larger issue, moving his hands wide. Once again, this is what's going to help people remember aspects of what he's saying, because one of the challenges that he has is that he talks fast. I do too. So I can relate to that, but he talks fast. He's a little bit more monotone than some of the other guys. So he does need to use his body language if he wants people to remember what he had to say this night.
About here, which is we're in a Cold War with China. The Biden administration won't admit that, but we're also in a economic war through what we're doing with agriculture and energy, and we're also in a war with them relative to cyber war. We get attacked every day in North Dakota, every state, every school district, our tribes, all being attacked every day by either China.
Once again, I'm talking about the eyebrows a lot, but it really is very significant to what politicians want you to hear. So China is where his eyebrows flashed. The rest of the country he lists, he doesn't really do that so much. Russia,
Iran, or North Korea. And now we've got a Biden administration whose whole policy is appeasement. They're out there, creating the world, making it less safe. $6 billion they traded for 5 people. They've just now set a price.
The attention span of folks watching this are not always going to be able to retain all this information. So this is something that one of the effective politicians do. They use their body language to help people remember what they're talking about. They make sure they make their points in an aggressive way. He wants you to understand a ton of information because he has points. He's like, I want you to understand these points. but people aren't going to remember what he just said because of the way that it's delivered. Now we're going to listen to Tim Scott for a minute.
It's the best way to get the job done. If you look at my office in the Senate, my chief of staff is the only Hispanic female chief of staff in the Senate. I hired her because she was the best, highest qualified person we have. What we need are leaders who lead by example. And I will simply say, I would love to finish my conversation with.
So now watch the difference with Tim Scott when he's doing prepared statements versus when he's talking a little bit more off the cuff. Just like all of them, they have a somewhat stilted way of speaking when they're talking about something that they've practiced or when there's a point that they have to get across versus when they're being a bit more natural. So watch him right here, and then we're going to let it flow into when he's being a little bit more natural.
He's the best, highest qualified person we have. What we need are leaders who lead by example.
And now we'll go into him being more natural.
And I will simply say, I would love to finish my conversation with Nikki as it relates to the job that needs to get done.
So as he's saying that, that's a little bit more off the cuff because that's not a prepared statement. That's related to what they were talking about, but he's coming up with it on the spot and he looks more comfortable. And I think it endears people more as they hear him say that.
Next.
You got bad information. First of all, I fought the gas tax in South Carolina multiple times against the.
Now, she wasn't using her eyebrows earlier, but she is now because this is something that she feels passionate about. She genuinely believes that she has a leg up on Tim Scott at this point, and she thinks that the point he's making is not a good one. So sometimes we'll see people defending against a point, and they look a little bit uncomfortable or weak, or they're afraid that they're not going to say the right thing. She believes that she absolutely has the upper hand right here.
Just go to YouTube.
Against the establishment.
Just go to
and
YouTube
you want to know what that 10 cent was? When they wouldn't pass the gas tax, the establishment and the companies wanted me to do it so much that I said the only way I will pass.
See, her body language is so much better when she's speaking passionately and it's not prepared. Watch this part right here because it does feel a lot more natural to me.
Just go to YouTube.
Against the establishment.
Just go to
and
YouTube
you want to know what that 10 cent was? When they wouldn't pass the gas tax, the establishment and the companies wanted me to do it so much.
See, Nikki Haley is at her best when she's feeling passionate about something, but she's too controlled at other times and it makes her feel inauthentic. When she's like this, when she's speaking passionately, her body language is very much in concert with what she's saying, but less so in the more prepared type of statements.
Secondly, on the 50 million.
Here is a nice part.
Secondly, on the curtain.
Now we're going to see Pence talking a little bit about the LGBTQ plus community.
When the Linn-Mar Community Schools in Iowa had a policy where you had to have a permission slip from your parents to get a Tylenol, but you could get a gender transition plan without notifying your parents. I weighed in with a foundation. That's not bad policy. That's crazy. We're going to stand up for the rights of parents, and
So this is something he really genuinely feels passionate about. There's oftentimes politicians will talk about things that they don't really seem to care that much about, but they know what they want to say about it. This is something I think Mike Pence actually feels quite strongly about. Watch his face right here.
that's not bad policy. That's crazy.
See, when he said that's crazy, that's something he genuinely believes. He's not just saying that to his constituents or to garner votes. I think that's really something he believes.
We're going to stand up for the rights of parents, and we're going to pass a federal ban on transgender chemical or surgical surgery anywhere in the country. We've got to protect.
And see, he said anywhere in the country. Watch this.
Chemical or surgical surgery anywhere.
As you can see, he's trying to bring attention to the fact that it's national, raising his eyebrows, wanting you to know he wants this to be national. That's what he wants people to remember about what he's saying.
Where in the country. We've got to protect our kids from this radical gender ideology agenda, and we've got to empower parents at the state level.
So hopefully going over all of this is helping you better understand how candidates use their body language, what body language comes across as awkward, and what body language doesn't work that well. And as long as people are interested, I plan to continue to analyze various politicians. I actually have a video on Joe Biden coming out relatively soon, but it's taking me a little longer than I thought it would. Last couple of things before we get finished up is I do want to remind you that if there are specific cases or people you want me to analyze, let me know in the comments below. And last thing before we get finished up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.